Welcome to TheoTrade. This is Don Kaufman. It is July 31st, 2018. You are watching the Theo Night video. We're just about 35 minutes after the cash markets closed and Apple earnings are out. And I got to tell you, right off the bat here, the underlying has not per se moved what was expected. Now, granted, there's still a conference call. There's still a lot of order flow to effectively play out. But let's get to some of the numbers kind of behind this, talk about a few of the trades that we've put on. We're also going to look at a number of other sectors. I mean, because Apple, listen, this is important right now. We've seen tech get absolutely hammered in the last couple of days, bounce back to the upside. Apple, again, holds the key to much of the next few days of trade, whether we're going to, of course, continue this bounce or whether we're going to fade it. And right now, I got to tell you here in this after hours, we're absolutely fading on Apple. So let's get down to it here with a little bit of exploration of Apple, not so much into the numbers per se in Apple, but specifically into things like the expected move. So the marketplace, and specifically when I say the marketplace, that is the options marketplace kind of dictated about a $9 move was going to happen, okay, when Apple earnings came out. So clearly we closed right at around 190. I mean, listen, we were looking for a move clear up to about 200. Hence, we actually laid a butterfly right on that 200 strike. You can see my butterfly. But have no fear. What did we pay? 18 cents for the B-fly, 18 cents. So if this thing doesn't work out, it's okay. I'm going to walk away from 18 cents. Nevertheless, we got nowhere near that expected move. We're not moving $9. We're not, up to 200. We're well shy of it. And what's effectively happened thus far is, again, it's only been a few minutes since Apple's news and earnings have come out, but there's a fade. This is precisely what we saw inside of Amazon the other day. Now, we faded, we got bid back up, we laughed, we cried. Ultimately, though, Amazon reversed. Right now, from kind of where I stand, is this really the key to the Nasdaq? Well, absolutely, in the next couple of days of trade. However, that key might actually be dragging the Nasdaq a little bit lower. Again, if you take a look at the Nasdaq, this bump to the upside that happened, again, precisely a half hour after close, that bump to the upside was Apple and the move in Apple taking the Nasdaq futures considerably higher on the trading session. They're now up just over 1%, but we faded and given some of that back. Now, the big question in the coming days, all right, let's actually look at the Nasdaq on a little bit of a broader take. So the Nasdaq, and again, we're going back just to last week, and we're just about a week back in terms of trade. This is the high inside of the Nasdaq futures. It was right around 75.30. We faded hard and fast, all the way getting down to 7,200. So, all right, what's 300 and some odd points amongst friends? Not much. And we actually bounced today to the tune. Okay, and again, this is bouncing from last night to today to the tune of, well, just over about 100 points. Again, from low to high, just over about 100-point bounce. So, listen, this, tech disaster ain't over just yet. Now, one really important point to be made over here has a lot to do with what we term the monsters of tech. Because one of the points that I want to make with the Nasdaq right now, because it is the Nasdaq that is clearly under duress. So kind of tune in, pay attention here for just a second, because we're going to get into some very finite details. So what I want to do for a second is just compare, if you're taking a look specifically at the Nasdaq, and compare that to what we term the monsters of tech. The monsters of tech were only up about 0.2% today. People, that ain't much of a rebound. Okay? Sure, Apple's being bid up a little bit after hours here, yada, yada, yada. Ain't going to be enough, because again, what we have seen effectively is wild sell-side activity. And these, again, it's the monsters of tech. It's what some people will call the FANG stocks. I can't stand that. This is our Facebook, our Apple, our Microsoft, our Google, our Amazon, all kind of compiled together. Does that look like much of a bounce to you? And the answer is absolutely not. And I think that's what a lot of people want to know right now. Is this going to be a buy the dip kind of situation? So one of the other things I've been looking at throughout the course of today's trading session has a lot to do with the advanced decline line. And you'll find this once again interesting. Talk about a bounce. So you get 70 products in the Nasdaq 100 that head higher. But again, the monsters of tech just don't make a move higher. At this point in time, we still have Google, Amazon effectively down on a given trading day. It would not surprise me at all, okay, to see a little bit of follow through to the bounce trade. Now, I want to be very clear about this, right, so that there's no, misunderstanding. I'm actually saying off of the Apple news, okay, it would not surprise me to see some follow through on the buy side in the Nasdaq. Nevertheless, I believe the Nasdaq right now is going to fade in the days to come. That is, okay, I am absolutely bearish, and not bearish on the Nasdaq longer term right now. I'm just looking out a few days. I have stated in many previous videos that I am absolutely bearish in the overall marketplace. Nevertheless, I'm actually bearish right here, right now. We're talking short duration. We're looking specifically at the Nasdaq, okay, getting whacked back in the next couple of days. At this point in time, the action that we've seen in the Nasdaq, this most recent bounce, which was effectively today, is very likely to be sold into. However, it wouldn't surprise me to see a little bit more upside prior to that fade. So what are we really looking for? A little bit more of a bounce followed by a hard fade. I don't necessarily think we're getting down, maybe to the 6,900, but hey, you can dream. So that's one of the areas of clarification I wanted to provide. Another area of clarification I want to provide happens to be specifically to the financials. I found it interesting. Markets bounced a little bit today, right? The S&Ps were up 21 points. Yet, we see the financials weak. We're seeing some very interesting rotations. It's almost like fund managers, okay, and pretty much any money manager out there, hedge funds, they are trying to squeeze a last gasp of air out of any sector they possibly can. When was the last time you actually saw what? The S&P futures up 20, okay, with the financials down 0.7%. And the monsters of tech are barely moving. You got to look at this and kind of question to yourself, what the heck are these guys even buying out there today? Like, what are these people buying? Oh, all of a sudden Tesla becomes back in fashion, right? Facebook didn't really get purchased up today. So again, when it comes to the larger market caps, the stuff that's quote unquote the in crowd, well, the in crowd isn't so in anymore. I mean, when push comes to shove, you've got funds out there right now that are purchasing Starbucks. Nobody has wanted to touch Starbucks for years at this point, and they're turning around and effectively buying Starbucks. All of a sudden, Caterpillar, which once again, since the beginning of the year, Caterpillar, okay, has kind of been the whipping boy for the entire marketplace. They're buying that today. Again, after earnings that were, well, a little ambiguous at best, they're back buying Boeing. Again, feels like a last gasp for air inside of the marketplaces. Put your helmets on later in this week. Again, we still believe there's going to be some sell-side activity in this NASDAQ. Thanks, everybody, for joining us here at TheoTrade. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.